This worn out but beautiful mid-century modern end table is made from teak. It was designed by Jan Kuipers for the Imperial Furniture Company in Stratford, Ontario. Obviously the underside hasn't had the same amount of wear and tear, and I'm pretty sure it has a lacquer finish, which is worn off on the top surface. I really love this kind of furniture, and I think it's partly because I was also made in the mid-20th century. But the design is always so simple and sleek. The fins that make up the bottom shelf remind me of what people in the 1960s thought the future was going to look like. I'm going to start by removing the leg assembly from the tabletop. I could tell before I started that the top was actually broken along the edge joints and split along one of the others. I'm washing the tabletop with a deck wash that contains oxalic acid, a chemical that is good for bleaching wood. You have to keep it wet for 10 to 15 minutes and then wash it off thoroughly and rinse it a number of times with clean water so there's no residue left. After waiting 24 hours for the wood to dry, most of the stains were diminished. So I took it outside and sanded the tabletop with 220 grit sandpaper. It looked good when I was finished, so now the tabletop's ready to be re-glued. However, before I did that, I sanded the table legs, which have some scratches and some paint smudges on them. I decided not to sand the underside of the tabletop or the fins because they're in pretty good shape, and the only people that are going to see them are crawling babies who would never be so rude as to make a comment, or drunken house guests whose vision is too blurry to notice the flaws anyway. Here I'm scraping off the glue from the edges of the wood where I'm going to rejoin them. I decided not to plane the edges because I don't want to change the proportions of the top at all. I tried to repair the split in the edge joints, but didn't really need to do that because later on I accidentally dropped the tabletop and that board broke right off, which actually made it easier to repair in the long run. I'm going to use a biscuit joiner to reconnect the boards. It works by cutting slots into the edges of the wood with this small blade, and then you put the biscuits in those slots and it helps to line up the boards. You make a pencil mark across the join, and that way you get the slots lined up from board to board. Here I've already glued up one of the boards and I'm gluing up the second one. You need to make sure you have an ample application of glue. You have to get it into the slots and you have to get it onto the biscuits as well. It's easier to wipe off the glue with a wet rag than it is to scrape it off later. Because I didn't plane the edges, I have a couple of cracks that I'm filling with a wood filler called teak. Once it's dry, I give the whole tabletop a sanding with 220 grit. The first coat of finish is a water-based urethane and stain-in-one called Golden Oak. After that, I put on 2 more coats of a clear water-based urethane, and in between coats I sanded very lightly with 400 grit sandpaper. I gave the leg assembly the same treatment. I started with it upside down so that I could do the legs, and then I flipped it over to complete the job. This clear urethane goes on looking creamy, but provided you don't put it on too thickly, it actually dries clear. The word upcycle is in my title graphics because my goal is to take worn out furniture and bring it back to life, even if that means sometimes transforming it into something the manufacturer or designer didn't intend it to be. However, in the case of this beautiful end table, taking it back to the state that it was in when it was new is better than anything I could do to change it. Click like and subscribe and let me know what you think.